again. We are live, we are back, and it is time to get all on here at the C-Space studio. I am James Kotecki. We are at CES 2024. This year we're sponsored by Integral Ad Science, and I'm really excited to dive into conversations with media, marketing, branding, and advertising leaders. And I'm super excited about our very first guest, returning champion, I would say, Gayle Troberman, CMO, iHeartMedia. Welcome back.
Awesome, great to be back, CES OGs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's start once again by just kind of defining where iHeartMedia stands right now. How do you define your brand? How do you explain iHeartMedia to people who maybe have heard of it but don't exactly know the full scope?
Sure. So iHeartMedia, we like to think of ourselves not as a media company, but as an access company. And what that means is we give brands access to every audience in America because we reach 9 out of 10 Americans across broadcast radio, the biggest podcasting network in the world, massive array of live events, a huge social and video footprint, and all the data that comes with having that mass reach audience. So we can find pretty much any audience and give a brand access to them across all our platforms.
And so is it fair to say there's a preponderance or kind of a leaning toward audio, but of course now every media company is doing kind of various media things. So you mentioned social, you mentioned video as big components as well.
Sure, but at iHeart, everything starts with audio because we really do believe audio is on fire right now. Broadcast radio has maintained reach through the internet era and the digital age and the social age. Yeah. Audio has continued to be a mass reach medium while we've seen things like print massively decline. TV, linear TV has seen massive declines, but audio has been holding reach and growing with podcasting.
Let's talk about broadcast radio for a second, because I believe you mentioned this last time that we were chatting.
I'm sure I did.
When you say broadcast radio is maintaining or growing, are you saying literally it's people tuning in on a dial like in a car on an old-fashioned radio, or are you saying it's that content but it's spread over maybe more modern appliances?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's both. Broadcast radio signals out into the real world. Yeah. People driving, particularly usage in car is huge, but we're also seeing incredible gains in digital listening to broadcast radio stations. Yeah. So you might get in your car and turn on KISS FM when you're driving live off the broadcast signal. You might also ask Alexa to play KISS FM because it's your favorite station. You might listen to it on your phone at the gym. And so we distribute all of our stations and our content pretty much anywhere you can access audio to make it as easy for listeners as possible.
And getting back to that word access, let's talk more about how you're giving brands this kind of access. So what kind of advertising or kind of brand outreach trends or ideas are you excited about, are you seeing, are you implementing?
Well, obviously the biggest trend that's exciting for us is just the massive growth in podcasting over the last 2 years. I believe I saw some Nielsen predictions that podcasting is going to double again in 2024. Wow. So it is the next mass reach medium. And not only just reach, but what's exciting about podcasting is it's got incredibly high engagement and attention. You know, there's this whole theater of the mind idea that because you're not seeing all the imagery, you're filling in the pictures. So if I'm like, hey, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? Right? I could show you a breakfast. Right. It's probably wrong.
But I'm imagining.
But if I ask you what you had for breakfast, was it horrible because you're here at a conference? Was it a bad buffet? Was it unhealthy? Yeah. I can now take you on a journey anywhere I want to go and sell you a message, and your neurons are firing. Your brain is filling in the imagery. Wow. So audio continues to be this incredibly high attention, high engagement medium when attention is at a real scarcity these days.
I'm going to have to start calling myself an actor in the theater of the mind.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, there's a performance art piece in your future.
I appreciate that. Let's talk about how AI plays into this. So we're moving toward a world where now I don't know.
We can get through this without that word.
Exactly.
But yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you can get through 2 steps here at CES.
I know.
So we're talking about a world where there's either more podcasts or more people listening to podcasts or more hours listened to podcasts or maybe all of the above. This very intimate setting where you can have this intimate relationship with the audience. And now we add in AI on various levels, on the analytics, but certainly now increasingly on the content side of things. Yep. Where do you see that playing? That's a very open question, I suppose, but we can dive into it.
Of course. So 2 thoughts there. One, obviously AI is going to be transformative for our business like most. You know, the ability, audio is already a tenth the cost, probably about the 10th the time in production of video. So AI only speeds that up and makes it even more efficient. So the beauty as a marketer of audio advertising is you can version infinitely. How do you sound when you're trying to sell to me in a country format, a hip hop format, a pop format, a K-pop format, an alt, and on and on. So the ability to version more and more efficiently and be relevant, not just for where you're showing up, but that moment. Am I in a pop station at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m.? Right? Is it a weekend or a weeknight? Right? So how's the weather out? Like the ability to actually adapt messages dynamically and on the fly, increase the efficiency of production for brands, and then all of the innovation we can do on the targeting, insights, and programmatic side of the business with advances in AI, big areas of focus and investment for us.
And does that have a lot to do with ingesting the podcast content and kind of figuring out what that content is and where ads should even go?
Exactly. For example, we have one of the best brand safety tools available, built on AI functionality with our partner Sounder, and we can get to the episode level. So instead of saying, you know what, here's a massive hit show, but occasionally they might go into a territory that you don't want to be associated with. Instead of ruling out a massive popular show with high engagement and huge audiences, we can now actually enable brand safety at the episode level. Right? So we can see what were they talking about, was that a topic a brand wants to avoid, and now you can buy, you might want to buy that show when they're talking about pop culture, but not when they're talking about politics, for example.
And is there an element to this where marketers need to kind of fundamentally rethink anything as we head into 2024? Maybe because of AI, maybe because of the scale. Is there a fundamental shift that you think needs to happen?
Well, yeah, I love that question because this is probably my topic for CES, and it's one we've been talking a lot with our clients about. We recently did a study with Malcolm Gladwell and the team at Pushkin on the new American consumer. And the premise was, or the hypothesis was, we've never had more data in the history of marketing, right? We can justify anything now with data. And so I would argue, and Malcolm and I were talking about this and we landed on this research initiative, because we have so much data, we are now more biased than we have ever been in the history of marketing. And what I mean by that, and we see it a lot at iHeart, is, you know, iHeart is, right now we are live on air on 860 plus radio stations in markets in America. And we are having a live human conversation, unscripted, real, messy, human. And yet marketers are here talking about AI and what's next and the future. And I think sometimes marketers, what we found was we did the exact same study of real American consumers and marketers to figure out what was different about our views, our habits, our behaviors, our beliefs, our values, and they are so different, right? For example, if we were here a year or so ago, I'm sure we talked about NFTs. 40% of Americans have still not heard of an NFT.
Okay, let alone bought one. Or
right, exactly. And so sometimes I think we're getting too far ahead of our consumers and we live in our marketer bubble, right? I think some interesting numbers, like half of Americans haven't heard of an Aperol Spritz. But 0% of marketers are unaware of Aperol Spritzes, right? Simple things.
Wow, these are some damning stats here.
Exactly. And I think it's just a good wake-up call, particularly in the beginning of the year and particularly CES, which is don't miss the consumers in the real world and their habits and their behaviors, right? What are they doing and how are you going to reach them and be relevant to them? Because I think as marketers, sometimes we spend too much time marketing to us, doing the things we think are cool and next and sexy, and that's great. There's room for innovation and experimentation. But if you're missing real America, you're not going to grow. And I think that's a huge message for us.
And such a challenge to figure out how to pop that bubble. As you said, there's data to justify anything
pretty
that
much
you
anything,
maybe want
right?
to do. If you want to justify your Aperol Spritzes at 3 p.m., you can do
that.
So let's talk about the real world in terms of live events. In the closing moments of this conversation here, I'd love to just get a quick snapshot of where iHeartMedia is at with live events and maybe how technology might push that forward in the next coming years.
Sure. Live events is a phenomenal part of our business. It's where you really feel the access we give to consumers and the once in a lifetime experiences we create. Just coming off the Jingle Ball tour, for example, 12 markets, just phenomenal shows, and the amount of joy and energy in those rooms. AI is obviously making production advances for us there. But what we love about the live events is it's a chance to bring our brand to life and connect artists, brands, and fans in new ways. This year we had a big breakthrough at the iHeartRadio Music Festival, where I think was probably one of the best examples of how the brands, the artists, and the fans can participate together. We created an entire house of music outside the T-Mobile Arena here, and artists had their own spaces that they curated, and so did brands, and they were all interactive experiences connected on your phones. You accrued points and merch, and you got to win as you went through the Kelly Clarkson experience and the Lenny Kravitz experience and the Fall Out Boy experience. And it was just a beautiful opportunity to see the creativity the artists could bring, not just on the stage performing, but before the show, after the show. I mean, people spent hours there, and they got even closer to their favorite artists in new ways through these interactive experiences. So we do about 10,000 events a year, about 20 real big concerts, and they're just going to get better and better.
Well, thank you so much for interacting with us in real life once again and bringing us closer to the future. Gayle Troberman, iHeartMedia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And that was the kickoff conversation of the C-Space studio here at CES 2024. But so many great conversations are on the way. Stay right here. Hi, I'm James Kotecki. We are in the C-Space studio at CES 2024, and joining me is Megan Ram from Uber Ads. I believe your title is Global Director, Head of CPG Partnerships. Is that correct?
It is.
So
That's
welcome
correct.
to the C-Space studio. Welcome to CES.
Thank
so glad
you.
to have you.
Thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Can you give us a quick snapshot to start with on the state of Uber Ads, the scope of Uber Ads, and just kind of what that consumer experience is like?
Yeah, I mean, it might help to kind of take a step back and look at Uber generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our business motto is how we reimagine the world for the better, which is a pretty ambitious one. We are kind of helping people to go anywhere and get anything, and then how does that translate into advertising?
Yeah.
Go anywhere means that you can book a ride, you can book a boat, you can book a train, you can book a flight. We have autonomous delivery, and on the eat side, that's specialty retail, that's grocery, that's convenience, and expanding into other areas like alcohol delivery and things like that. So, from a consumer perspective, being able to go anywhere and get anything is like at the core of our DNA.
Yeah.
We're also very focused on the riders, the merchants, the earners, everyone that kind of makes up the flywheel of the Uber ecosystem. Billions of trips quarterly, which is an exciting amount of consumer behavior and the data that comes along with it, which has fueled the ad business that we're building. So from an ads perspective, it's like, is it organic? Does it fit with the consumer experience? Is it exciting for them? Do they want to see it? Do they want to receive the messaging? And then considering all these modalities, all these ways in which they can interact with advertising is a pretty exciting kind of swath of opportunity when you bring it to bear.
For brands, very exciting because you know where they are, you know who they are, you know where they want to go, so you can kind of infer what they're trying to do, and you can add advertising into that.
And from a psychographic perspective, they're in a good mood, right? They're not doom scrolling. They're not seeing content that's unsafe. Usually, they're going to an event or a party, things like that. So it's an exciting space to be in, and we're happy to be rolling out this product.
So where are some of the places that ads will show up in terms of ad products that you're offering to brands? Is it, and I think probably people have had these experiences, but now that we're just kind of bringing it to the fore and talking about it, because people may have seen this in the background or someone else is booking an Uber trip or something, but so I pull up the app, is it in the app, is it in the car? Like, tell me about
so let's take the Rider app first. So if you pull up the app, you're in the car, you get this great kind of sound on, full screen environment, viewable, and of course brand safe. When you're sitting in the back seat, you also have the opportunity to engage with our tablet product. We now have launched that in 7 cities, expanding that globally. It's a huge lean back opportunity that we feel will be like the next frontier of engagement and interactivity in the car. So you have on app, you have in the ride itself, and then on the eat side, we have a whole performance-based business that we're building. Search, display, banners, video, even innovation like pre-checkout or other ways to intercept the consumer before they're making a purchase, but in a purchase mindset. And bringing it all together, kind of using the data that we have from Eats and from Rides makes a powerful combination of both brand and performance advertising. And then we've rolled it out in the last year in 7 priority markets globally, and then scaling that in additional countries this year. So a lot of global scale as well as interactivity on both sides of the app.
So it's still in a rollout phase, so people in certain cities that are watching this may not have experienced it in the same way.
Correct. Yeah, most of our major markets have it now, and if you don't see it, it will be coming soon.
You'll see it soon.
Yeah.
So what have you learned through this rollout, either through the data that you've collected or the way that it's rolled out or the way that people interact with these ads? What have you learned?
I think that starting with the data is great. Data is our most powerful asset at Uber. Obviously, we're all embarking on a world where the data, logged-in data, is going to be more scarce and less usable, right? So we consider our location data to be one of the most powerful sets in the world. Obviously, you have purchase-based data on the Eats side that's incredibly useful, interactive, and real-time to inform how you're going to use the serve the ads, right? And all of that also comes with a lot of insights that we can give to our customers about their own consumer behavior, opportunities for expansion, and ways that they might want to pull in people for innovation or net new lifetime value with this younger set.
And so when you think about the vision as it's complete, in a year, however many years time until this is kind of fully rolled out, do you think that has implications more broadly for kind of the future of mobility, the way people think about getting around, the way people think about having food and other things delivered. I suppose I'm asking a bit of a philosophical question, but I like to kind of take it to the next step.
I like it. No, look, we're in an on-demand environment. I think the pandemic changed that, like, full stop, right? People want convenience, they want ease, they want reliability, and they want safety. Uber brings all of those things to bear in one, and I think how they want to receive messaging has changed and evolved over time. We've also seen how people search and want to buy has drastically changed over time. So the combination of that behavior is working in our favor. We're excited to see how consumers engage with the ads that we have put in our products so far. When we expand on the mobility side, when we expand on the delivery side, it's going to bring us a lot of new innovative surfaces and also data to help inform where we put ads next.
Yeah.
And I think that our audience is younger. They are more into being exposed to messaging in the environment that they care about versus being like, pushed upon them. And it's a really native way for them to experience advertising, get inspired, and also make a purchase.
So it's something that they're expecting, that they're generally okay with. I imagine that you might have a range of people reacting to ads in different ways.
Yeah, and I think that's why Uber took some time before we did it, right? Our consumer base and also our membership base, if you look at things like Uber One, are extremely important to us. We don't want to do anything that would deflect, at the cost of their experience. So far, it's been extremely additive, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're now realizing that we can deliver more value to the consumer. Personalization, also affordability is a big thing. You want to see offers, you want to see relevant, limited time things that are exciting to buy and get, and feel like you can get those benefits in our app, and that's also what advertising does for the Uber consumer base.
And it's interesting to think about this in the context of smart cities, because I think when that term was probably first coined, people were thinking about smart electrical grids or smart plumbing systems or things like this. But I think what you're kind of talking about is like this additional layer of advertising and messaging and kind of location-aware intelligence about what people are doing. That's also a part of what a smart city is.
Yeah. No, we you'll see it with our partnerships with cabs. We just announced the London cab partnership. We have a lot of good partnerships there. We care as much about the big restaurants and obviously the big players on our platform as we do the mid-size and small businesses. So how do we encourage local commerce and continue to make sure that is a part of cities functioning? We bring value there, and then you give the consumer the benefit. You give the consumer the choice. Do they want to order from their local shop down the street? Do they want to order from their big box retailer? Do they want to go to their local watering hole? All of those things can be brought to bear with Uber services.
Yeah. As we keep expanding out philosophically the nature of this futuristic
like
conversation, what is something maybe outside your industry that's giving you inspiration as you continue to push these innovations forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think like younger sets do give us inspiration, right? Like our industry for a long time was very traditional in the way that we offered advertising and also kind of consolidated in a couple of platforms. I think people are realizing there's a diverse set of services, there's a diverse set of platforms that can bring value to consumers, and younger people want to see messaging in a different way than other generations do. So there's a lot of opportunities to bring, I think, diverse points of view into the way that we message to consumers, and Uber is a major channel for helping to diversify how we think about serving to those sets.
By the way, just to return to something you said at the very, very beginning of this, you can book a plane on Uber?
In certain markets, you can book your flight, right? So,
so it really just depends on the market that you're in.
It depends on the market that you're in. The point there is the stickiness of the application, right? So when you're converging the services that you want to have as a consumer, consumers want less apps. They only use about 5 apps on their phone. How can they get most out of the important apps that they have, and what are all of the things that they can do, with that service? Again, here comes things like membership. So for our most loyal base, they have higher basket size, they have more purchases, they want to do more things, plan their travel, book a train, book a boat in Greece, you could do that too. So those types of things, I think, add value, and also are services that consumers want to see in a consolidated manner.
So as we wrap up here, any final thoughts here at CES 2024 as you're looking ahead to the next year?
You know, it's going to be an exciting year. I think 2024 is going to be pivotal, like from a data perspective. There's a lot happening right with the cookie deprecation, so we'll see how that goes. Uber has a leadership position here with the data that we have. Excited to see the new platforms cropping up and what we can bring as a result of that.
And actually, sorry to ask one more question. Can
Yeah.
you just dive into that cookie issue for a moment? For those who may not be familiar, can you just quickly give a snapshot of
I think
what that means and why Uber is well positioned?
Yeah, I think we've been hearing about it for a couple of years right now. Our ability to understand who people are and find them across the web is obviously decreasing. We're going to have to look at better ways of contextual advertising, segment-based advertising, and also comfortability with the data sets that we have because of Uber's data, because of our logged in authenticated user base, and our ability at a global scale to understand who you are and the messaging you want. We're going to be in a leadership position here.
Who you are, where you are, what you want.
Yeah, and I think as will a good set of retailers and other people that have logged in user data. So a lot to be excited about, right?
Well, Megan Ram, Uber Ads, thank you for letting me interview you and sneak in one final question
Thank you,
under the radar. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you so much for watching. I'm James Kotecki here in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. So many great conversations are on the way. Here at CES 2024. I'm James Kotecki here in the C-Space studio, and joining me is Aaron Wetzel of John Deere. You are the you are the VP of Production and Precision Ag Production Systems at John Deere, and we're so glad to have you. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
John Deere, always a big presence at CES. I believe you keynoted last year's CES. What's your message here at CES this year?
Yeah, our message this year is continuing on the journey that we talked about in last year's CES about how Deere's equipment and its technology solutions come together to create new value for our customers, help them be more productive, help them be more efficient, but also more sustainable for the planet.
So let's talk about what some of those things mean in practice. I mean, I don't know if you want to kind of take me through some of the coolest stuff that you're showing at CES, or what's the best way to frame that?
Yeah, I would say for those that aren't here at the CES show, if you were to enter the John Deere booth, one of the areas that's pretty exciting is the first thing you see is a video link to a tractor running autonomously at one of our test farms in Austin, Texas. And participants that are actually here at the show will be able to control that vehicle from an iPhone at that field in Texas. So we're super excited about the continued progress we're making in the areas of autonomy and leveraging AI and machine learning capabilities to help us address the problems that farmers have is labor availability. And so this particular solution enables customers to do other things that are more valuable on their farm if they're not having to sit in the cab of a tractor, and that tractor's out performing tillage work today. And then it's helping them quality of life as well. So being able to be at home for their families for dinner at night when during the harvest season is a very difficult time. So we're super excited as that's kind of our entry point into the booth around autonomy and what that brings for farmers.
And so where are we now, to dive into that a little bit further, in terms of the practical rollout of autonomy to farms, either here in the United States or around the world? Obviously, it seems like this has been an issue, autonomy, where companies like John Deere are able to be a little bit ahead of companies that are, frankly, carrying passengers in the backseat of a car or on public roads or other things. It seems like a farm is an ideal place to try and figure this out and to progress this technology. But is this something that a farmer can order today and get a farmer in their field tomorrow and have it doing this autonomously? Where actually are we on this?
Yeah, we're still in the beginning stages of our journey around autonomy for customers. We're focused primarily on tractors today. We are working with cooperator farmers in various parts of the United States at this moment, but we intend to break that to a wider range of customers within the US, and ultimately we'll take that around the world. We'll expand that in terms of the capabilities of the machines, but also helping them address this productivity and labor shortage problem that we've got.
Yeah, is it the kind of thing where you're moving towards someone is still in the cab, but they have to do fewer and fewer tasks, or maybe they're more operating like a commercial airline pilot where it's on autopilot, so to speak, and they're kind of monitoring a system as opposed to physically driving it? Is that, or are you kind of going in that step, in those directions? I
would say we're already in some of those steps today with AutoTrack is currently in our machines and operating with thousands of customers today. The tractor is going through the field pretty much by itself. You're in the cab monitoring the systems. What we're talking about in autonomy is no one is in the cab. And you're actually remotely looking at the machine, monitoring its performance, and doing very different things than letting that tractor run 24/7 in the field by itself.
I love the idea that it's controlled by an iPhone, by the way, which is something that a lot of people are carrying around in their own pockets. How important is, as you continue to develop this, accessibility to people, integrating with technologies that they already have or already understand? Tell me how the thought process works there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fundamental cornerstones of our technology journey is we've got to keep it simple and easy for the customers to use. That's what's going to drive adoption and utilization of the technology. If it's too difficult, they're not going to use it. And we've seen that on our journey of technology and incorporating it in machines. So being able to use your tablet, your phone, and making it as simple as possible is the way we're going to help really drive this across the acres and the customers that we want long term.
And tell me about how autonomy ties into what it sounds like your role is largely focused on, which is precision agriculture. Can you maybe define that term for folks who are watching the CES content here who maybe aren't as familiar with precision agriculture, and then how that relates to autonomy?
Sure. Our precision ag business is really how we more precisely farm a field. And it's more precisely placing the seed, placing chemical and nutrients to optimize and maximize the output and yield. That's really the kind of fundamentals of what precision ag is all about. And Deere has been investing heavily for the past couple of decades on how do we bring new technologies to the market to help customers more precisely manage their fields. Historically, farmers farm the field and they'll look at the 40-acre tract and make decisions based on that entire 40 acres output. With the technology we have and the ability to really capture the data of what's happening at the planting stage, the spraying stage, and at the harvest stage, we're helping farmers more finally manage that piece of acreage down to the meter or even down to the seed itself long term.
Yeah.
And so that's what's exciting about what we're doing at Deere is the technologies we're incorporating into our machines through each step of the production system, helping customers get more information, make better decisions, but ultimately they're going to reduce their inputs, they're going to reduce their costs, they're going to be more efficient, and ultimately this is better for the environment as well.
Yeah.
So.
You know, I speak to a lot of advertising and marketing leaders here in the C-Space studio, and there is such an analogy here to what has been called spray and pray marketing, where you just blast your message all over the place and you pray that it actually works. And of course, over the years, and what I talk about a lot here in the C-Space studio is people more precisely targeting that message. So it's interesting to see kind of the parallels in other industries, and really, I think it's all about data, right? So what kind of data are you able to collect and use? I suppose there's so much data, but are there certain kinds of data that people might be surprised by, whether that's the kind of data point or the scope of the data that you're actually able to collect?
Yeah. So we're building many layers of data as each time a customer traverses through a field doing a particular task.
Yeah.
In the planting stage, with our ExactEmerge technology and the data capabilities we've established on that particular machine, we're able to basically see where every single seed is in a field when it's planted.
Yeah.
When the farmer then goes to the next stage of nurturing the crop, so you're placing chemicals and other nutrients. With our new See and Spray technology that we just launched a couple of years ago, where we're leveraging artificial intelligence systems and cameras to go through the field at 15 miles an hour and discern if that is a plant that we want to keep or is that a weed we want to spray, and then spray only the weed. And we've got those machines in the fields today working with customers, and we're seeing customers realize up to 70% in chemical savings.
Wow.
Because they're not
so
having
they can grow the same amount of food and they can use 70% fewer chemicals?
What's even better is the yield is improving. Because what we see is when customers go through if you broadcast spray everything, that chemical does have some impact to the plant itself.
Yeah.
We're actually seeing those when the plants are not sprayed. They're actually being more vigorous and ultimately higher yields.
So you reduce the negative impacts of where it shouldn't have been sprayed in the first place.
Exactly. So it's super exciting what we're experiencing today in agriculture, the way we're being able to leverage technology for the benefit of the planet in terms of sustainability, but also enabling our customers to produce more food to feed the growing population around the world. And so that, at the end of the day, is what we're trying to do is help customers achieve that.
Yeah, and that ties into the human security for all theme of CES.
Yep.
CES, I believe technology was recently named the 8th pillar of, I should actually look up what I mean by that. It's like the 8th pillar of human rights or something like that. So technology as a component of how we advance the human condition is increasingly being recognized both here at CES and elsewhere. So speaking of all of this data, all of this autonomy, do you think of John Deere as a tractor company? If I walked up to someone on the street, what's John Deere, a tractor company? Is that how you think of it?
I think of it very differently. I mean, clearly our business is still driven a lot by the machines that we sell and the customers that we serve.
And the iconic visual of a green and yellow John Deere tractor, it's hard to overcome.
But we are changing, and what's exciting is the pace of change that's happening within Deere and how we're embracing technology in all aspects of our business.
Yeah.
How we're focused on the customers and how we can take that technology and incorporate it into the machine to make their jobs easier, make them more productive. I've been with the company 35 years, and it's exciting to see the transition that's been happening, and particularly in the past few years, how we're really starting to ramp up the technology journey and take advantage of the capabilities that exist out there to the benefit of our customers.
Yeah. And what's the journey for the next, say, 5 years? What are we going to be talking about in 5 years? Is it getting people ramped up on using and adopting and understanding how to think about their farms differently? Obviously, the technology needs to continue to increase.
You know, the next 5 years are going to be very exciting for agriculture. It's exciting for Deere in the technology suite that we have available for customers. We will do that. We will be very focused on driving adoption and utilization of our technology solutions. We'll continue to expand our offerings of autonomous capabilities, of more precise application of seed chemical and nutrients, all at the end of creating more data so that customers can make better decisions to help their overall yields. You know, we're going to take that not only just in the US, but we want to take that globally as well, looking at markets like Brazil that are ripe for these types of technologies and capabilities, as well as Europe. Everywhere that food is being produced, Deere wants to be there and being able to offer its technologies to make them more productive.
Well, Aaron Wetzel, John Deere, thank you so much for joining us today here in the C-Space studio.
No, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
And we are at CES 2024. I am James Kotecki, and more great C-Space studio conversations are just ahead. Don't go anywhere. in the C-Space studio, sponsored by Integral Ad Science, with me, James Kotecki, and with us, Wesley Terhaar, co-CEO Media Monks. Welcome to the C-Space studio.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So do you define Media Monks as a digital marketing advertising agency, or maybe something more?
Yes, broadly. I think we're helping clients go through the next wave of digital transformation.
Yeah.
And we're doing that by combining content, creativity, data, media, and tech.
Yeah.
I guess you call that an agency, but in practice it's a bit broader.
When you need smart people to throw at these problems, they call you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think I want to lead by talking about your, you were named Adweek's, I'm just reading this to get this right, Adweek's very first AI agency of the year. So
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
AI is infusing CES 2024 as
Yeah.
it never has before. Obviously, it's always been it's been a big issue. Now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be an AI agency, let alone an AI agency of the year?
I think it means that in general there's a lot of anxiety in our industry about this technology, and there's a bit of a fight or flight response. Our commitment was being fast and first.
Yeah.
Media Monks, we founded it 23 years ago, and I think our
Okay.
strength has always been being excited about whatever happens next.
Yeah.
And we probably did that a bit more than most in our industry when AI happened, so I think that's really a reflection of it.
So then, can you give me some maybe philosophical cornerstones of your approach to AI? What's the kind of the foundation? Where do you start when you think about approaching AI as an agency?
Well, realistically, it changes the economics of advertising. It pushes what used to be manual labor to compute, pushes what used to be physical production and spend to cloud,
Yeah.
and it's being honest and fair about what that does for our collective commercial model. Because agencies, our commercial model pretty much is what percentage of my people can I get billable for what percentage of their time.
Yeah.
People in time, that's a very squishy concept in the age of AI. And it's being honest about that and excited about what happens after it, which is really, I think, the fundamentals in our push.
I heard that when they first invented the spreadsheet, some
Yeah.
accountants would do it, would use the spreadsheet, but then they would take 3 days to deliver it to the client because they would still want to kind of imply that they were doing it the manual way because they were afraid of it, potentially, taking business away or maybe changing the perception of what they could do. It sounds like you're kind of leaning into that perception change in your case. What are some of the practical ways that actually manifests itself? What is someone doing in their day-to-day that's different now because of AI, or maybe how do you conceptualize that differently?
It's interesting because the account and Excel example is often used as an explanation that it didn't replace an industry, it actually made an industry grow more meaningfully impactful, and I think we have a similar opportunity on our side of the fence. Realistically, we're giving back some of that productivity gain to clients earlier than maybe is comfortable, because we're also looking at the upside and the excitement, which is we can start delivering on the original promise of digital advertising. Right? The hypothesis is if we have more, we can be more personal, more targeted, more contextual.
Yeah.
So a lot of this plays out in our ability to create a lot more output at much higher levels of speed, just allow us to be a more relevant player from an advertiser perspective.
You have an AI announcement here at CES.
Yes.
It is an AI product called Monks Flow. Tell us about that.
I think it's the only AI announcement at CES this year.
This is the one.
This is the
the
only
one and
one,
on
so
our
it's-
stage. So thank you so much.
It's quite exciting.
Yeah.
So Monks Flow, this is really playing into the fact that the economics have changed. Monks Flow packages some of the industry's very best talent with AI technology in workflows that are aimed at specific high-value marketing organization use cases, retail media content, performance media. And you can buy that from us in different ways than you used to buy just our services. And it's actually, from a commercial perspective, very competitively priced.
That's interesting. So Flow is about workflow.
Yeah.
And the idea that, I mean, to use another analogy, the chess analogy is often used sometimes too. So it's, a human can be beaten by a computer, but a human and a computer working together are the most unbeatable kind of combination. So it's similar philosophy there?
Yeah, that's the philosophy, and I think it's important. I think the current initial sort of wave is a lot about people using interfaces. We don't think that's really the next wave of what's happening.
Okay.
It's really having models and workflows controlled and influenced by people, but not just a person and an interface. That's not really scalable. So it really changes how our teams work and how our teams are able to work for our clients.
So when you say it's not all about the interface, it's not for you someone just sitting in front of a computer screen like a ChatGPT and saying, give me 5 taglines to use for this ad campaign.
No, it's not just mere prompting interfaces. I actually think we're seeing, in our industry at least, the initial sort of backlash against AI output.
Okay.
Because lots of people got really excited, started
Right.
using a bunch of tools, and now they're looking at the output going, wait a minute, that's not actually usable for us as an end product.
Yeah.
So it's how do we put people in the loop while still getting the speed and scale upside of AI models.
Interesting. But there must be, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, as we all are here at CES. So there must be some kind of interface though, right? So if a human and an AI are going to interact or have this be in a workflow together, how do you package it so that, to what extent is the human seeing AI, is reacting to AI? Tell me about that.
I'll give you an example, which is probably the most popular use case at the moment, retail media. There's lots of content needs that our clients have. Historically, that's been the case for the last decade, but retail media has pushed that into a whole new wave. Our talent sets up the initial templates. The AI models and APIs create all of the versions, all of the translations, all of the variations that we can sort of map against affinity segments. And then it goes back to the human that makes sure everything is high quality, maybe gives feedback to the model if something isn't good enough, so reinforcement learning. And then the person in the loop sort of finalizes and pushes into media. So you sort of have this handover. It's not just an interface. It's the human and the machine work closely together in those workflows to get to the best output.
And do you see your team rethinking their own approach to creativity, or even their own philosophy around what it means to be creative?
Yeah, 100%. There's a bit of ontological shock to it. Like it's quite strange to look at something that's been done one way for a very long time, and suddenly there's a way to do it completely differently. But we published a book ahead of the Lens today as well, which shows our own talent using AI as a tool for creativity. And it's actually amazing to see the quality of that output. So I think the very best talent gets the very best output. That hasn't changed. Just the amount of output you can create is completely different now.
It sounds like you're trying to stay on the leading edge here. That accolade from being the AI Agency of the Year certainly indicates that. So is there something about the industry that you think and that you believe, but that other people might think is kind of implausible?
I think we'll look at the current commercial models in our industry as very old-fashioned very quickly. I think the concept of just paying knowledge workers per hour, I think doesn't really make sense in the age of AI.
Okay.
So I think that's where at an industry level we're probably looking at that either more ambitiously or more aggressively, depending on your take.
Where you would prefer to be paid for output or results, I suppose?
We do output and outcome. For every client that's ready to move into this space, we move to output and outcome.
Okay. And how's that working?
It's working well. It's working well. It's early, right? Everybody is sort of in that first wave, but we're very excited by what we're seeing.
Is there something you think brands should be thinking about in 2024 that they might not be thinking about? Is there a message or a flag you want to wave here at CES?
I think people maybe underestimate the impact this is going to have. Like at CES, it's quite interesting, right? AI isn't a category; it's the start of a new economy, right? It's part of every product, part of every service. It will impact every industry. I think people mostly underestimate that, to be honest. And I think understanding what your business service is within that new economy is quite a meaningful discussion.
So you said, how long ago did you start Media Monks?
It's almost 23 years now.
So you've clearly had some success if you've been around for that length of time. You're continuing to have success. How do you not rest on your laurels and figure out what works and try to keep doing that and maybe run that into the ground? How do you keep it fresh?
Well, I think the history of the company is a search for relevance, right? The constant question of are we relevant now for our own people and for our clients, and will we be relevant 6, 12, 18 months from now? You used to be able to make 3 to 5 year plans.
Right.
That doesn't feel realistic anymore. But it's the excitement of that switch that I think is actually why we still keep pushing.
It seems like you are prepared for your business to radically change in the next couple of years and to look different again.
It will have to.
Okay.
It will have to.
Well, when that happens, we hope that you come back and share that with us again.
Thank you.
Wesley ter Haar, Media Monks, thank you so much for joining us here.
Appreciate it. Thank you, James.
And thank you so much for joining us. We are in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. This year we're sponsored by Integral Ad Science. I am James Kotecki, and you can find us live on the CES LinkedIn, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube channels. And if you're watching us live right now, just keep it here because more great conversations are on the way. at CES 2024. We are in the C-Space studio, sponsored by Integral Ad Science. I'm James Kotecki, and joining me, a very special treat, the CMO of Integral Ad Science, Khurram Malik. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for sponsoring the C-Space studio, and welcome.
Thank you, glad to be here, James.
So, Integral Ad Science, let's just kind of start with some definitions.
Yep.
What does your brand mean, and most importantly, what does it mean going into 2024?
Great, well, thanks for having us here. And I want to start with why Integral Ad Science, how Integral Ad Science, and then I'll get into what it means for 2024. So Integral Ad Science is a global media measurement and optimization platform. We provide the industry's most actionable data to drive superior results. And we do that for advertisers and agencies on one hand of the media ecosystem, publishers on the supply side, and all the media platforms in between, streaming services, social media. And people often ask me, like, well, what's different about your actionable data? Let's touch on that a little bit, right? So our data is broad and comprehensive, meaning it's all over the internet services. So we process up to 280 billion digital interactions daily.
Wow.
Our data also has depth. Our AI software breaks down data, the streaming services as an example, and video, and can look at video on a frame-by-frame basis, and the audio and the text, and turn that into 600 contextual categories. Okay. So we have data breadth, depth, and it's available in real time. And so the question then becomes, why do people use us? There's really two questions people want to use us to answer. Is my media working? Measurement. And what do I do about it? Optimization. And so we're really in the business of answering those two questions for our customers. If you think about 2024, and what does it mean for our brand? There's a couple things. One, it means we're here to maximize ROI for our customers. It's a big year, and we'll talk about 2024 a bit. We also want to help our brands safeguard and scale their business. And then finally, we want to forge the future of digital media with our customers. So that's a long answer to your short question,
Sure.
But it's really about actionable data and driving superior results.
And why is 2024 going to be such a big year from your perspective?
2024 is going to be a big year for many, many reasons. Let me touch on two. One is there's this little thing called the Olympics coming, and the Olympics is going to bring a ton of energy to the media ecosystem. And then there's another little thing called the US election, right? Yeah. And so in that environment, advertisers are going to be looking for both how do I maximize ROI in that situation, and how do I safeguard my brand in that situation, right? And we have the tools to bring to bear for that.
I really want to get into this idea of brand safety. There are so many companies, technologies, products here at CES. How do you even approach a conversation about brand safety with them? Where do you start?
It's a really, really good question. I think it goes back to the fundamentals of how do I safeguard my brand, and how do I scale it? Meaning, how do I protect my brand, make sure it's in an environment that nurtures my brand, allows it to not be around controversial content, but then how do I enable it to scale and drive ROI? And you want to think about safeguarding and scaling your brand across all media channel types. So think about that for a second. We're at CES, and think about all the companies that are here. CTV, social, streaming, TV OEMs. Those are all channels and pieces of content that consumers are engaging in. And what brands want to know is how can their brand show up in those venues in a safe way, and how can they do it in a way that scales and drives ROI. Luckily we have the ability to do that using AI. Back to what I talked about, actionable data, breaking down frame-by-frame analysis, and providing brands the comfort they need in an environment such as 2024.
So if they wanted to, they could go to the frame level and say, if even one frame of this, or that might be more of a subconscious thing if there's really just one frame, but if there's just a really short snippet of something that might be controversial or construed a certain way, they can opt out of that. So how do you let brands determine what brand safety means to them? Because I imagine there's a range of what brand safety means if you're a soda company versus like an edgy skateboarding company or whatever it might be.
Yeah, well, let's go back to how I started. CMOs really care about two fundamental things. How do I maximize ROI for my brand? Do it with new tools like AI. And how do I safeguard my brand, all right? And so it's really brand specific. And so the way CMOs will tackle that is ask themselves, all right, so which partners that I invest in from a media and publishing perspective provide the most brand safe environment? Meaning, what are the fundamental brand levels of safety that can provide me? And how can I leverage industry bodies like GARM to provide me the framework with which to decide whether to avoid a publisher or not?
Yeah.
And brand suitability is very brand specific. And so what we're excited about is providing those tools to brands and the ability to discern them.
So is 2024, in terms of the trends that you're looking at, that you're looking forward to, is it going to be a continuation, a deepening of this amount of data and this AI being put towards these two very pivotal kind of content moments, being the Olympics and the US election? Are there other trends that you're looking forward to in 2024?
Well, I mean, there's a major trend that I'm paying attention to. Just last quarter, I was at a dinner in New York with fellow CMOs. And one of the things we were discussing was the ANA's report on media waste and fraud. There's billions of dollars being wasted today. And I've never met a CMO whose CEO is not constantly saying, drive more ROI.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm paying attention to is the trend of MFA websites, or made for advertising websites. These are long tail websites that are created with synthetic content, content that is often not performant, not brand safe, and something that advertisers want to avoid.
Yeah.
Right? And so the ability to avoid made for advertising websites is critical. And I'm proud that IAS late last year introduced a tool that allows advertisers not only to detect MFA sites, but to avoid them. And why is that so helpful? It's helpful because it allows advertisers to drive ROI, it protects their brand, and it rewards responsible publishers, those that have ethically sourced diverse content.
And as to why those websites are created in the first place, we're talking about somebody who has a long 10-word obscure online search, right? And so they've created a website for every potential obscure search term they can think of within a certain vertical, and they're just trying to get ads on
As an example, that's right.
Yeah. I want to touch on streaming platforms for a moment. What are you looking for here coming into 2024?
Yeah, streaming platforms, you gotta think about streaming platforms from two perspectives, consumers and advertisers. I think consumers are going to continue to engage in new advertising video on demand services. By 2026, 50% of the US population will be on streaming services that are ad funded, right? And those consumers want to continue
Not just streaming services that are ad funded.
Exactly. And they're going to want a great experience. They want a great ad experience too, right? Advertisers, guess what, are going to want the same level of measurement for those streaming services. So that means that they want the transparency, they want to know, is their advertising working? What do they do about it, right? You see a pattern here. And in that instance, last year we launched our invalid traffic and viewability measurement tool for advertisers with Netflix, so that Netflix can expand their ad-based tier. We also were the first last year to launch a CTV brand safety and suitability measurement tool with Iris.tv. So you're an advertiser, you have comfort that your advertising is running against content that is brand safe on CTV, which is one of those emerging channels that there's many CTV folks here. Right?
Yeah. And so much of what you're doing is playing into a broader, it's so great to be here at CES because we're at C-Space now, which is all about content, but that content is going out on all different kinds of devices, and there's so many different kinds of technology here that are interacting and interweaving and kind of coming together in interesting ways. Is there another technology advancement that you are excited about and looking forward to in this broader context?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to answer that in two ways. So the first is kind of a pure technology play, and then one from just a kind of a philosophical way. From a technology perspective, I'm very excited about attention. And the AI and machine learning models I mentioned earlier are allowing our ecosystem to determine what pieces of content advertising are garnering attention, meaning capturing the cognition of a consumer in a healthy way. And we think about attention in three ways. Visibility, situation, and interaction. So is the content visible? Is it in a kind of clutter-free environment? And is that content being interacted with, right? And those three factors contribute to our attention score. And so last week we were excited to launch our quality attention product that actually is the first product to unify media quality and eye tracking data. So that if you're an advertiser, you can now invest in content and advertising that's garnering attention, driving higher ROI for you, instead of just picking content on the basis of its context.
Yeah.
So we're extremely excited about that, and that's a very real example of AI and ML at work. Now I want to touch on one other thing related to what you asked. There's a philosophical topic that's really, really important, and I'm a father of 3 boys, and I care deeply about their food nutrition.
Okay.
But I also care about their media nutrition. In our small town in New Jersey, there's an 8th grade class on media nutrition. Why? Because what people are consuming, we want it to be healthy.
Yeah.
So I think this upcoming year, responsible media will be a massive, massive topic of discussion. And just this morning, we launched the Rise of Responsible Media report on integralads.com. And the reason we invested in that report is because we wanted to help educate ourselves in the media environment on what does responsible media mean. Responsible media is content that is accurate, ethically sourced, right? And it's content or content producers that provide that for a healthy media environment.
Yeah.
Right? And you know, our research came out with Magna Trials, and it asked parents, publishers, and advertisers what they felt about responsible media. And one kind of clear takeaway is that parents want the media ecosystem to do more to provide responsible media and healthy diets for their children.
So challenging as a parent myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Challenging.
Very challenging, and I'm so proud of the work we've done as IAS in that space. You know, we're going to do more. In the next quarter, we're going to be releasing products that help here. So we're going to be releasing a kids content avoidance product with social media platforms, so that as an advertiser, you can reach on content that's focused on your adult consumers and on a content for children. And so that's an interconnected web that I'm excited for us to support.
Well, really appreciate all your thoughts here. I want to give you the final say, final thoughts here at CES 2024 in the C-Space studio, your message, your thoughts, your dreams, your hopes.
Wow, that's a big one. So my ask of marketers and CMOs in 2024 is know that brand safety and suitability is here to stay. You have a very exciting year ahead of you with the Olympics, with the US election. Make sure you have the ability to use AI for yourself and for advantaging yourself and your brand. Safeguard and scale your brand in 2024 with the right tools across all the media channels you see here at CES. Social, CTV, short form video. I think that's my message to CMOs. And then for us, I'll end with, you know, we're here to drive that actionable data for you and drive results for you. So I'm so proud to be here and represent the team and also the C-Space here at CES.
Well, thank you so much. Khurram Malik, Integral Ad Science, thank you so much for joining us and for sponsoring the C-Space studio.
Thank you, James.
And thank you so much for watching the C-Space studio here at CES 2024. I'm James Kotecki. We are going to continue with these conversations, so don't go anywhere. We're all on here in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. I'm James Kotecki, joined by Flo Adamski, CEO Omnicom Media Group. Welcome to the C-Space studio, and thank you for joining us.
Hey James, thank you so much for having me. It's an exciting time to be here.
Omnicom Media Group, what does the brand mean right now?
You know what, James? Right now it means navigating a very, very complex space on behalf of our clients. So Omnicom Media Group is a globally operating media agency. We work on behalf of hundreds of clients, spending an estimated $40 billion with us, and we help them making better, faster, and more efficient decisions as it comes to advertising. 2024 is going to be, and I know it's been said many, many times, but I think it is fair to say it one more time, it's going to be an inflection point. Yeah. Believe it or not, after everything this planet has gone through over the past 2 to 3 years, it is yet another inflection point. So for example, next year we'll see, this year, 2024 really, we'll see global ad spend soar to above $1 trillion. $1 trillion. That is a watermark that is completely new, and it just shows the responsibility that advertisers and agencies such as ours have to spend that money wisely, to make sure every dollar counts, but also do it in a way where we engage with consumers in an age where there is a lot of uncertainty of how to share their data, share private information. So really transforming the client and the customer's experience is what Omnicom Media Group is all about.
So $1 trillion ad spend, that must mean that every dollar has to compete harder, right, as well, for attention, for getting some kind of action from the consumer in order for them to go buy something or do something, right? Is it more increasingly competitive?
James, you're spot on. There was a time I started in this business in the late 90s actually, and at that time where there was about 50% of today's ad spend was being invested, and it was all about buying clout. Like who were the clients, who were the agencies that would amass the largest volumes of US dollars spent invested into advertising. They would get the better rates, the better deals from the media companies, and that was that. Now it is all about outsmarting, not outspending the competition. Even if you spend $1 billion, which some of the large advertisers, for example, in the United States would do, you are still confronted with a mountain of ad spend that's coming from the other side. So really dealing with this new environment, very much dealing with the deprecation of the cookie, finding new identity solutions. I just saw a stat the other day where they say there is now 111 identity solutions, which is a very confusing space for clients. That is our role, that is Omnicom Media Group's role to really help clients to navigate that space.
Does AI actually help you particularly, or you, the general person in this industry, does AI actually help you outsmart anyone, or does it just create a new foundation that everybody is using, and you now have to continue to add your own human intelligence on top of that?
Another very, very smart question, and the answer is both. I think that AI, in general terms, while I completely understand some of the implications and worries and concerns that society at large should be having, and we should be treating this topic very, very transparently and thoughtfully, AI empowers an agency like ourselves to do smarter work, faster work, leaner work, and more effective work. To your point though, if it up-levels everybody at the same level, it will create that new watermark that everybody then operates from. My hope would be is if that is the case, advertising, the $1 trillion spent, will be spent in ways that is more compelling for consumers. If that is the case, that would mean that the ROI, the return on that spend, would actually increase, which would make advertising at large more effective. That means future growth for the industry, and hopefully, as I said before, in a way that it is compelling to consumers.
Is there a certain speed at which you can evolve or follow the consumer's ability to handle increasing advertising or new kinds of advertising? In other words, if you put a bunch of money and a bunch of technology into advertising, but the consumer's not ready for that level of advertising, whatever it is, are you going to hit a wall? And I'm not even sure my question completely makes sense, but that's just what I was thinking when I was hearing what
you know what, James, it goes back to a term that you used in your last question, that was attention. So we see a huge attention deficit. We talk about the goldfish syndrome, right? And we know how people use social media feeds and how they scroll through advertising messages. So quite often there is less than a single second of attention for an ad. And again, that is part of the role that we have to make advertising matter, to make it relevant to the consumer. Having said that, and we talked about the cookie deprecation that is playing out as we speak, with the first percentage point of users being disabled to use third-party cookies on Chrome this last week, actually. We got to find smarter ways, more contextual ways, more meaningful ways to be connecting with consumers to make sense of all that ad spend, because if we don't do that, there's going to be a backlash, and then all that money ultimately will be spent with a lower ROI, the exact opposite of what I said a minute ago, and that will ultimately weigh down and on the advertising industry.
And isn't it challenging, though, to operate in an environment where you individually might realize, look, if we push this too far, we're going to get a backlash, but you're competing with everyone else to try and push it as far as you can, obviously, because as we said, it's an extremely competitive environment.
It is a balance to strike. I mean, trust me, if I told you I started in this industry a number of years ago, if somebody had told me that by 2024 we would be seeing that $1 trillion spent, I would have thought that is not achievable. So on the one hand, I see that as a positive, because it goes to show that this industry at large has growth momentum. But on the other hand, there is this responsibility and really the accountability that we have to avoid the backlash. So I think we as an industry need to come together, and that is media agencies, very much the clients that spend the money, the media owners, the publishers, and the industry bodies, to define what good and effective advertising actually looks like, how much exposure we want to bring to a consumer before it is simply too much, because too much of anything is just a poison there is no antidote against.
We talked about AI. I'd like to go a little deeper on that. Can you tell me about maybe specifically for an individual employee, they open their laptop, what are they doing differently with AI within your agency right now? Any interesting use cases you want to highlight?
Yeah, so there is not a single area of our business that is not touched upon by AI. It is the way how we operate, how we work internally, and I'll come back to your question in just a moment as it relates to what does it look like for an employee, but it is also how we make better, faster, more effective decisions on behalf of our clients. So for example, what we internally call channel planning and budgeting tools. So how is a dollar actually spent? Where's the next dollar going to go? Which channel? Is it TV? Is it online? Is it print? And so on and so forth. All these things have been machine learning driven for a long period of time, and generative AI is just going to increase that level of data-driven marketing. That's the client-facing side of it. Internally, the work that we do will become more effective by giving our employees the ability to use data in a way and in a volume at scale that they previously had not been able to. So they'll be able to come to decisions much faster and quicker and give recommendations to clients within minutes that would have taken days before. Ultimately, you said, how does it look like for an employee? And I don't want to copy from someone else, but I think one of the largest software companies in the world, just last week, they made a major pivot on how to redesign their keyboard after 30 years by introducing the Copilot button. And it is very, very similar at Omnicom Media Group. So our people have access to something we call Omni Assist, which is essentially our open operating system, housing all of our tools, capabilities, and applications that enable people to do their job. And they have access to the central repository of AI-driven tools.
You mentioned earlier that if someone had told you at the beginning of your career we'd reach $1 trillion in ad spend, you would have found that implausible. Now I want to ask you, is there a prediction that you have for the future that other people might think is implausible, but that you really believe?
You know, a lot of people predict a lot of things, so I'm very careful with these things.
That's what we're all about here in the C-Space.
That is true. Now look, we talk about AI a little bit and how it changes the way people work. I think interestingly there is this perception that AI is ultimately going to reduce and even destroy employment and that many people will lose their jobs over it. And that is not what I believe. I believe we need to be more effective, and I want AI to make us quicker, better, faster. Having said that, you talked about the new foundation. I think I called it a watermark. So I think what AI will really do is to help us make certain commoditized decisions faster. At the same time, people will be moving upstream in terms of making better strategic decisions, and I think there's going to be an entirely new space of professional young people moving into these spaces. So overall, I don't think that overall employment will suffer from AI, but it will shift dramatically. And I know that there are a lot of people at this conference who would quite heavily disagree with that statement, because they believe that overall, especially in the ad sector and the agency sector, employment is going to plummet over the next few years.
Well, Flo Adamski, thank you so much for having this conversation. We have to have you back. Omnicom Media Group, we really appreciate it.
James, thank you so much. That was awesome.
And thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. I'm James Kotecki, and so many more great conversations are just ahead. We are live. Don't go anywhere. are in the C-Space studio here at CES 2024. I am James Kotecki, joined by our friend and returning guest. We said this is your third time, we believe.
Third year.
Here on the C-Space studio, Lizzie Woodhelm, SVP Marketing, SiriusXM Media. Welcome back and thank you again for joining us.
It's so good to see you.
It's great to make this a little annual tradition.
So, are there any other guests that have had 3 years?
Yes, but you're our favorite, I'm going to
I like
say.
that. I like that.
But as we like to do, let's kind of start by defining where the brand's at. As we begin this year, 2024, SiriusXM Media, how are you defining it right now?
Well, we're having a big year. SiriusXM just launched its new app in December, and so we're really excited about the future of this app. You know, last time I was here, I was talking about SiriusXM and Pandora and SoundCloud and all these great brands that are a part of this ecosystem of audio that we connect with customers every single day on. But what we didn't talk about is just how much work we had planned to sort of update a lot of the feature sets and a lot of the ways in which we interact with customers. And so right here today, we're like a month into this new app. It's going really well. I'll share a funny quote. We had a GQ writer who just happened to get a new car over the holidays, and he said, "This is the app I never knew I needed."
Ooh.
Like that's like the
What a quote.
best endorsement for someone saying like, "I thought I knew what SiriusXM was, but wow."
So you're hyping it up. So tell me, what is it about this app that makes it so great?
Well, twofold. So one is that the underlying technology is completely updated. So when we're here talking about the future of in-car, the future of mobility, and everything we want to do around personalization, it's an entirely new tooled app, ground up. So that's really exciting for all of the technology nerds out there. And you can understand by doing that how we can prepare for all of the new devices, whether it's a car, whether it's a phone, whether it's an in-home device, and the mobility that a audio customer wants from their audio content partner. So that's first and foremost. And then it's really about just all of the new content in the app. I mean, take sports for example, you'd have to have 5 other subscriptions just to get all the sports that we're offering in the app. All of the new podcast content, all these new creators that we've signed. So it's just completely refreshed, driving a younger audience. So it's exciting.
So you're all about this audio content. Do you feel like you're competing in a world where streaming video services would love to fill every second of everyone's day with streaming video, or do you feel like you're complementary in certain spaces? How do you think about that philosophically?
Well, I think as we think about how humans interact in the world, that audio plays a much stronger role in terms of being a companion for the times of day. So it's portable. It's much more portable, right? You can cook and listen. You can run and listen. You can work and listen, whether it's your favorite podcast, whether it's your favorite, team. And so do we compete for time spent? Of course, we're all competing for attention and time spent. But do I think that audio is a more powerful, and guess what? It is driving more time spent with customers than any other format out there. I wonder, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, please.
You care if I ask you a question?
Let's do it.
Okay.
You've earned the right to turn the table.
Thank you. How many hours a day do you think the average American spends with audio?
3.
Over 4.
Wow.
Like 4 hours and 30 minutes on average.
And I only guessed high because you were asking the question.
Right, and so that's a huge number, right? And so it is a companion. There's no way you're sitting down static, just sort of lean back doing that.
And if I actually think about myself, it's probably more than that.
Yeah.
So you're here at CES 2024, back at CES again. Obviously the app is a big story. What other stories are you taking into CES here? What are your messages?
So we're here with a really cool meeting concept. I mean, everyone comes to CES to see their friends, right? Their business friends. And we have a concept called Audio is Magic. And it is a complete audio experience in a dark room. We're doing it here at the Aria.
Okay.
And we have storytellers, 2 of our great storytellers, walking the audience through the power of audio. Everything from sonic identity, music, sound effects, voice, the authenticity that you need to bring into an audio spot. And so it's a 1-hour audio-only presentation. Think like dark headphones. Wow. And we're just reintroducing the power of this format to marketers here to help them remember how important it is in this AI world, in this really noisy moment that we're all experiencing, to remember the power of this format and why it's so so effective at driving what they're after, which is, I was just listening to your last guest, it's like you just are trying to connect. And it's so hard, and audio does it so well. So that's a fun experience we have here.
And what do people say when they come out of the darkness after an hour?
Well, first of all, I think they're just very excited to do something other than sit with a PowerPoint or
Sure.
sit with something that is very expected. So it's a very unexpected experience, and it's educational. I think that's why we come here, to be curious, to see what's next, and to kind of reset. So the attendees that are going through it, which we sold out, we had only so many meetings we could
Sounds cool,
execute,
yeah.
and we sold out in 2 days for marketers wanting to go through this.
Well, people who are watching this video can close their eyes and listen to us and maybe have some of the similar experiences of our conversation. But I want to talk about that intimate audio in the terms of podcasting, something that you and I both know very well. What's the state of podcasting today, and kind of, again, how are you philosophically thinking about that as you head into the next year?
Yeah, and we talked about this last year, so I was trying to reflect on like what's different year over year.
Yeah.
Last year was all about just helping the creators understand how to make great shows. They obviously were reaching audiences, which is why we, as a partner, were investing in podcasting to begin with.
Yeah.
But this year, it's transitioned to they really understand that advertisers need to play more of a role than just the host read, which is sort of where the business was.
You're saying the creators now understand
The
that.
creators get it, and they're leaning into, well, I want to go on the road, and I want to have advertisers be a part of that. I want to do content on TikTok and YouTube, and I want advertisers to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And then I also understand that I might need to format my show a little bit different for programmatic, and that's probably the big trend that's driving the big investment in this space year over year. Our programmatic revenue is up 97% year over year.
Congratulations.
And so the work, again, being done to organize the supply and get us connected to all the programmatic pipes for the revenue to really come into this space, I'd say that's the biggest change year over year.
And if we're going to talk about programmatic advertising, might as well talk about AI. I believe we touched on it last year. But now, of course, AI is just infusing CES at every level. It's infusing everyone's job and every conversation. So we might as well go there as well. What are you most excited about with AI today?
Two things. I'm most excited about going from a concept to an actual ad as fast as possible and being able to get a spec spot to an advertiser to say, how do you like the sounds of this? Going back to audio is magic. Like letting them hear the ad, letting them understand what a host read version might sound like, what an announcer read version might sound like, what an ad for SiriusXM on the satellite in a live scenario might sound like. And that like A to Z process is so much faster with AI, getting them excited so that we can drive then the next step, which is real production. And having the real voice of Conan voice your spot, right? Or an announcer that's someone that you're really excited about from a voice or gender standpoint that you know is going to resonate with your audience. So it's just like speed to go from excitement to an actual example of what we could do for them. AI is allowing us to move so much faster. And then the second piece of that, diversification of advertisers. We now can create effortless creative for a very small business that normally, maybe they wouldn't be able to go through or spend enough money to go through a standard production process. But we can leverage AI to make that go faster and allow them to be a part of this audio movement, which maybe they've only been working in the display space.
So everything that's happening within the SiriusXM media kind of ecosystem with AI, as you're describing it, is of course very legit. But when you talked about the real voice of Conan, I mean, that implies, and it's true, that you could have a fake AI voice of Conan or any other celebrity or any other person. Maybe even, you can answer from a business perspective or maybe even just a personal perspective, but how are you thinking about this world where we could have fake but very realistic voices? I mean, especially, it's probably easier to fake audio to the degree of persuading someone that it's real even than video, right? So how are you thinking about this world that we now live in?
Well, we're doing a lot of experiments. We have an experiment right now called Humans versus Machines, where we are building voice talent creative, synthetic plus voice, where we're sort of mixing and then completely synthetic.
Okay.
And we are exposing those ads to our test subjects. And humans are actually really good at hearing authentic voices versus synthetic voices.
Yeah.
So are the synthetic voices getting, I've actually cloned myself, and it sounds a lot like me, but it doesn't sound, it's not me.
Okay.
You can tell it's not me. So if it's a celebrity, you're gonna know, and so we won't be putting fake Conan on the air. Now, if it's just a random voice and we can get a synthetic voice to sound like a human, and an advertiser's like, that's what I want, I just want something at scale that's a super efficient price, there might be a world where that can work, but I'd say at SiriusXM, we're so focused on authentic voices on our airwaves, streaming, in our podcasts, that I don't think there's an immediate future where you'll see fake Conan.
Or even, or if there was a synthetic podcast, maybe that would be for the novelty of it, just because it'd be interesting to people that it was synthetically done.
And actually, there is going to be a show launching this month. will.i.am, I'm sure you know who he is.
Sure.
And he is very much a futurist and interested in technology, so he will have an AI counterpart helping him host his show.
Okay.
And that will be on SiriusXM. I haven't heard it yet. It was announced, so you can go take a look at it.
Okay.
He will be using his AI FYI app, which is something that he put out, I think it was last summer in Miami to great fanfare. And so there's an example of a creator that he will be playing with AI on his show.
Yeah.
And I think that's really amazing, but in juxtaposition to him, we just launched John Mayer and his new show, and he's using no AI. And he's very focused on like, no, this is the real me. This is me curating everything I do by hand on this show. And so that's where a good example of like the creator can pick.
Yeah.
And maybe there will be a creator that says, you know what, I want to play around with synthetic voice, and maybe there will be fake creator and real creator.
You could co-host it
on
with
there.
yourself, and then people could try and figure out which was the real you.
You should do that.
All right.
That's very meta. You need to do that next year.
Here's our next project. So we'll talk about it next year, how it's gone. Any final thoughts as we head into this year of innovation, disruption, and really just insanity as far as all the AI that's going to happen?
Oh gosh, I think that it's not going to be too insane. I think that the bulk of this year is going to be all of us just trying to do our jobs smarter, leveraging technology to do it. I think finally there's opportunity to do so. I mean, every guest you're going to have on is going to talk about, we just want all of these tasks and tactical things that take forever to be less burden on our employees. And I think that's going to be the real trend this year.
Lizzie Woodhelm, SiriusXM Media.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming back, and of course we'll have you back again. Really
Yes,
appreciate it.
I need a 4P.
Exactly. Very rare, but very very deserved. All
Thank
right,
you.
well that is our interview with Lizzie Woodhelm from SiriusXM Media here in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. I'm James Kotecki. We're sponsored this year by Integral Ad Science, and so many great conversations are just ahead, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio here at CES. I am James Kotecki, and joining me is Patrick Gut, VP AdLook US. Welcome to the C-Space studio.
Hey, thanks for having me.
AdLook US, how do you
Yes.
define the brand here at the beginning of 2024?
We define the brand as privacy-centric. We think about, we launched in the US about a year and a half ago. May have been a little bit too soon. Our key focus is around privacy.
Okay.
And with Google continuing to push out cookie deprecation over and over, the industry got a little phased out from that for a bit. Now cookies as of January 4th, finally the first 1%, 30 million is out. And so we've seen a great uptick in conversations around privacy, hope, opportunity in terms of scaling what the future is going to be.
And for folks who may not be familiar with the term cookie deprecation, but have certainly experienced it in their own lives, folks here at CES may be beyond the C-Space area, maybe not marketing, advertising folks. How do you explain that to people, and can you give us a snapshot?
So actually, it's funny, I was talking to Media Post yesterday. Cookies turned 30 this year, right? So happy 30th.
Yeah, the ability to track you over the web.
But so what they do is, the way I envision it is, think about when you go to any website, you have a backpack, right? And when you get to that backpack, all the stuff in that backpack are cookies that help advertisers and publishers identify who you are. That backpack is going away. And so to be able to aggregate that is going to change the way that marketers talk to consumers.
And so what are you talking about here at CES? How do you bring this message to folks, and what are you saying?
Yeah, so it's about transition plans. Like, we would think about testing plans, but essentially it's a fundamental shift in the way marketers and consumers start interacting digitally, right? And so we talk about what that transition looks like, the kind of technology that's required to evolve to meet consumers where they expect advertisers to be met, and ensure that we're not just trying to replace a cookie with an ID, but actually evolve the way that media is going to be bought in order to help advertisers regain trust, which I think they've lost with marketers over time.
You mentioned consumer expectations. What do consumers expect? I mean, we talk about privacy, we talk about people being willing to pay for things like streaming services with advertising, or maybe take a reduced price on that. So clearly people are open to advertising on some level, but where are consumers today?
I think it's around transparency, right? So we just, they need truth in it, is what I would think. So like, we've done a study over the past, from 22 to 23, hidden emails came out. There's been a 10x jump in the number of consumers that hide their emails, right? And so I think consumers choose anonymity when they have it, and when they know what's happening to them, they're more comfortable with it, right? It's a lot of times, I was at a meeting last night, and we were talking about Ozempic, right? Because who doesn't talk about that now? Relevant.
The weight loss drug.
Right, and so we're thinking about, hey, we're taking bets on who's going to get the first Ozempic ad on their phone, because we think that our phones are listening to what we're saying. And I think that mentality of consumers not trusting the space that we're in, that needs to shift, and they're expecting that to shift for marketers to regain trust. And I hope that cookie-less deprecation helps that happen.
So what are some specific ways that you do hope that marketers can regain trust?
Yeah, so I think it's evolving the way that they go to market, right? It's when cookies go away, there's things that you could take, or marketers could take an approach of basically trying to replace cookies with other IDs that are still invasive. And there isn't a ton of scale around that. So the question is how do advertisers use technology to adopt the way they interact with consumers and meet them at their expectation levels without using any sort of personally identifiable information?
And is it a message to advertisers of, look, you got to bring something more to the table for consumers now. You can't just invade their privacy or seem like you're invading their privacy. You have to get their permission on some level. And if you bring, but the good news is, I'm going to put some stuff out there. You tell me if it's true. Maybe the good news is, if you give them something that they want, they are willing to engage with advertisers.
It's got to be a mutually beneficial interaction, right? And so I think no one likes to be sold. They love to buy, right? So the concept of Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio, right? That movie's great, but the concept in marketing is really strong, because if the brand can connect with their consumer and give them an exchange value, I think they're very much okay with that.
Yeah. What brands have you seen do this well, if you're able to call out some specifics?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to call out any names.
You don't have to.
But I will say there's a categorization of brands that I think are doing it well. Ones that realize that there's a yes and approach to it. So like not siloed thinkers. Ones that say, because look, in the ad tech space, the entire industry unfortunately is built on this premise that IDs or cookies allow money to exchange hands. And so over the past years, as cookies have been deprecated, a lot of folks are like, IDs are going to solve it. Reality is they're not. People don't want IDs. The adoption is really low. So I think the brands that are going to do well they're realizing that IDs are great, but they also need to do something else. So a yes and approach being more collective in the way they go to market.
I love the idea of yes and as a devotee of improv comedy, which is where that statement kind of originally came from. And I believe you said you're based in Chicago, is that right?
Yeah,
which is
Second City.
the home of really great improv there. Speaking of ands, this entire show is basically all different kinds of technology and AI, right? AI is infusing everything that we're talking about. It's infusing many of my conversations here in the C-Space studio. And so I want to give you a chance to address that. How are you thinking about AI now?
I think AI has gotten an indirect rap in the space. Everyone talks about AI, but no one knows the difference between machine learning or deep learning, structured, unstructured data. I just feel like people talk about it because they feel like they have to. We've tried taking a step back on that because in our perspective, the main differentiation is the type of data that can be processed to help an advertiser make a decision. But the truth is I believe that in order for marketing, it's going to be a fundamental shift over the next years. Like 30 years of transacting on a single identifier that is no longer there. Everything shifts. And so embracing technology and understanding how it processes data, I think is going to be AI, generative AI, large language models, things that can process tremendous amounts of data to get as precise as you can at scale is going to be really important. And the ad industry and brands need to start taking into consideration that at the forefront.
So if the industry is hurt or challenged by cookie deprecation, is it potentially getting tailwinds from AI? Maybe these things, I don't know if balance out is exactly the right
I think
term,
the opportunity is, I think it's just going to be a new reality and it's not going to be worse, right? That's look, I'm leaving a message for advertisers is once you embrace the reality and you know that technology can help you drive into that reality, it's not going to be worse. There's hope.
Yeah. Is AI going to be useful as kind of an observer of what consumers are doing? So it's not that necessarily that I almost want to think of it, because it's artificial intelligence, you can't exactly say that it's just like a human brain looking at it. But to kind of use that analogy, it's like a really powerful brain just looking at all these transactions, looking at all these things going on, and being able to piece together connections in ways that people might not have been able to.
So I think so, right? So and if I get too deep on this, just pull it out.
Sure.
But when I think about it, there's machine learning and deep learning, and there's the conscious and the unconscious is how I think about it. Machine learning does really well with the conscious. So decisions you make, right? That's only 5% of our brain. 95% of our brain is based on neural networks that we know nothing about, but when I go to that grocery store or when I'm breathing, like it's just happening and I pull for something, that's where AI I think is going to be really valuable. It's showing brands, marketers, consumers, the things that they didn't know to look for that help increase the value of any transaction or engagement.
You talked about a category of folks who are doing well. What about advertisers who are really struggling? Are there some common themes you see with the folks who are struggling to adapt, and maybe things you want to tell them?
I mean, I would say, so it's almost the opposite of those that are doing well is they're siloed in thinking, and that IDs will solve all, right? I have my team ask questions to advertisers. What is your privacy solution or cookie deprecation solution? Oh yeah, we have a solution, it's IDs. Great, that's going to cover 20% of the web, because guess what? IP addresses are being truncated and going away as well. And so the question becomes is like, what is it, like stop trying to recreate what consumers don't want. And I think the folks that struggle is they think they're going to be fine. They're not actually listening to what consumers are telling them that they're looking for. And once they realize that they have to pivot, they'll be in a good spot, but they're a little further behind.
Fill in the blank question for us. The future of our industry is blank.
Promising, which is a BS answer, right? But I'll tell you why I think it's promising is because it's gonna, with cookies by the end of this year being deprecated, consumers will regain trust, I believe, in the way when they see an ad, they're not gonna be as skeptical about it. So I think maybe it's a reset or that allows consumers and brands to reset their relationship of how they're receiving and engaging with content and media and messaging.
And do you think that takes time on the psychological front for the consumers? Even if the technology just changes today, which as you know is very challenging, as a transition over time. People have been trained to expect, like you said, if I'm talking, then Instagram's going to show me an ad for the thing I'm talking about. So how is it a factor as much of human psychology and retraining consumers?
Yeah, it really is. I think human psychology is fascinating, right? Like, and the key behind it is it takes time and it takes multiple data points, right? With one data, like you think about consumer reviews, I think are fascinating because very much psychological. No one raves about a 3. You write a review when it's a 1 or a 5.
That's true.
Right? And so in order for it to be a review on something, there needs to be multiple 3s or the 5 has to be so good. Advertisers have the opportunity to now give them 5s. And if they miss on those 5s, it won't change as expedited with consumer behavior. But if they give them a 5s, I think they will.
Well, thank you for being a solid 5 interview for us here in the C-Space studio. Patrick Gut of AdLook US, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
And we appreciate you watching. I am James Kotecki, your host for interviews here in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. So many great conversations are on the way. Keep it right here. Welcome back to the C-Space studio here at CES 2024. I am James Kotecki, joined by one of my favorite guests. We've talked so many times over the years at CES, and we're glad to have you back. Duncan Crabtree Ireland, the National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator of SAG-AFTRA. Thank you so much for coming back.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's great to see you as always.
Wow, well, since we chatted last year, SAG-AFTRA has had quite a year.
Yes.
You are the union that represents, among other folks, actors, and these actors went on strike last year. I believe it was about 4 months, right?
Yes, yeah, you might have heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were all over, I was like, I know that guy, and you were all over the news, obviously. Now you're back. AI was a big factor in that strike. So I want to start by just kind of contextualizing for folks kind of what AI protections, what the issues were, what the protections that were won as a result of that strike. Can you give us a status update?
Yeah, sure. And let me just say, James, CES helped us identify AI as the issue was going to become, and helped us do it years before we actually had to launch into this negotiation.
That's right. You and I have talked about issues like this for years, and I was like, oh, I know why he's concerned about that.
Yeah, we really have. And so, last year at CES, we had a panel track up called Future Shock, and it was all about AI and its impact on the entertainment industry. And little did we know that within months of that, we would end up actually having to go on strike in order to make sure that the protections that our members need would be enshrined in the contract with the major studios and the streamers. But those protections really revolve around what we call informed consent and fair compensation. And what that really means is that when an actor is going to have their image, voice, likeness, or performance replicated using AI technology, or really any technology, that they should have the right to know what that's going to be. And that consent can't just be some boilerplate sentence. It has to mean, we know what you're going to do with our image, we are okay with that, we're giving you permission to recreate us in that way, and then that people need to be paid fairly for doing that.
And so if I were to preserve a performance and then use it a few years later in a different context, I need to go back to that person and get consent again for that different kind of uses.
Yeah, but we're even talking about not just the performance, we're talking about these companies are creating a digital replica of a person, and so they can create an entirely different performance that you never gave. And there's a de facto consent when you're an actor on a set, because if you're being asked to say something, you're saying it, and you can say, I'm not going to say that, or I'm not going to do that. But if they've got a replica of you and they can make it do whatever they want, then that has to be protected contractually and legally, because you're not there to protect it yourself.
And how much of this was about protecting the future, and how much of this is about things that are actually happening right now? Your actors are back at work. Are they seeing these kinds of things already bubbling up?
Oh, absolutely. This is something that, for the actors in particular, this is something that's already happening. I mean, there's some high-profile examples. Obviously, Carrie Fisher in the Star Wars movies, Paul Walker, Fast and Furious, and other examples too. But many of our members have been scanned to create the kind of data that's necessary to create a convincing digital replica. And so this is something that our members felt had to be dealt with right now. It could not wait, because this is happening today, not tomorrow.
You are a negotiator, and so I want to, if I could, ask you to kind of maybe not take the opposite side, but at least give me the opposite perspective. What were the studios saying about AI? What were they kind of dismissive of it? This isn't that big of a deal. How were they thinking about it in this conversations?
Well, I think that they were not quite ready for this, to be honest with you. And some of them are using this technology already. Some of them aren't. They're not all in the same place. And so I think they weren't quite ready for how important this issue was to us. That became immediately apparent. We started negotiations. This was one of our very first proposals on the first day of bargaining, and it was the very last proposal that was finalized on day 118 of our strike. And so I think the reality is the companies were concerned about locking themselves into something they didn't fully understand or anticipate. And they're also concerned about competition coming from companies that are outside of the entertainment industry, companies like OpenAI or companies like even Google.
Right.
And they're concerned about limiting themselves too much in a potential future competition with those companies.
And so let's talk about that a little bit more, because you've made a deal with the studios, but in a world where companies in the United States, beyond the borders of the United States, anywhere around the world, could be theoretically, as we've talked over the years, very easily and increasingly easily, because of the way that technology is advancing, create digital replicas, create digital copies with or without consent. How do you approach that world and your positioning within it, given that you've made a very important breakthrough deal with these folks, but there's other people who are going to be maybe trying to do some of the things you're trying to prevent?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a two-step process, right? There's collective bargaining, and our members, I mean, I think you could see from how they, turned out for the picket lines and the 98% strike vote, our members aren't going to work for companies that don't have acceptable, ethical, respectful deals signed.
Yeah.
So then the issue becomes, what about companies that are doing things without consent? And that's where the public policy side comes in. And we have a bill currently pending in Congress called the No Fakes Act, which is going to establish a right for performers, and all of us actually, in our name, image, likeness, so that when companies try to steal our image, steal our performance, steal our face, steal our voice, we have a enforceable legal right under federal law that we can use to prevent that. So it's it's kind of a mosaic that has to be put together to make sure that everyone's protected.
And right now, is there any law that would protect such a thing if it were to happen today?
There's law at some states. About half of the states have what are called right of publicity laws that protect against commercial misappropriation of your image and likeness, but there is no federal law.
Yeah.
And clearly with something like this, we need federal law, and frankly, ultimately we need international norms too.
Yeah. How do you think about, I guess one of the answers is you came to CES, but how do you think about, I mean, the strike is a 3-year authorization coming out of the strike, a 3-year deal, is that right?
Well, it's actually about a 2.5-year deal because of the strike itself.
So in another 2.5 years, you might have to go back to the negotiating table again. Technology just keeps advancing. Right? And so how did you put in place this framework for like, all right, we kind of know what AI is doing now, but we have to be ready for things that we aren't even necessarily sure are going to happen in 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's going to be evolutionary. In fact, just this morning, we announced here at CES a deal with a company called Replica Studios, which creates digital voice replicas for use by video game companies. And so we announced just a groundbreaking deal with them. Their CEO is here with me this morning, signing the deal and announcing it.
Yeah.
And that's all about providing even the next level, the next evolution of protection for actors working in voice work for video games. And that includes things like transparency, that includes things like time limitations on the use of replicas, all kinds of other pieces. So the reality is, when you are in the business of collective bargaining, it is always something that you evolve over cycles of negotiation. And one of the things I'm really proud of in our deal with the studios and streamers is we have a right to meet with them every 6 months to find out what they're doing in AI in general, and specifically with generative AI.
Okay.
So we'll have that information for our next round of bargaining, which will be here sooner than we know it.
Given those meetings, I'm not sure if the first of those meetings has happened yet, but is there anything interesting that you want to highlight, either from something you're worried about or just something that's cool that studios are able to do with generative AI right now?
Well, the first of those meetings won't be until June of this year, of 2024. So I don't really have anything to say about what's come up in those meetings yet, but I will say that we had really, really deep conversations with the studios as part of this negotiation, and I feel like there is a higher degree of understanding about the concerns that actors have, and I think there's going to be a recognition that people are going to stand up for themselves. No one is going to let themselves be walked over in this new, world of AI, and as a union, we're here to bring people together to accomplish that.
And speaking of the union, you mentioned video games, and I believe there's a strike authorization, so the video game performers aren't on strike now. They potentially could be on strike soon. Any update there?
Yeah, I mean, we're still talking with the major video game companies, the video game studios. This Replica deal that we announced this morning hopefully will help give them a road path, like a roadmap to how we can get to a deal with them. They know what it is we need done, they just haven't been willing to do it yet. If that is not done in short order, then it is quite possible we could be on strike against the video game companies in the course of the next 4 to 8 weeks.
All right, your work is never done.
Never done.
Beyond AI, and it's almost silly to say beyond AI, because AI is just kind of infusing everything here at CES. Are there other, but since we are at CES, are there any other kind of technologies that you have your eye on here?
Absolutely. I mean, I think VR is finally poised to sort of come into its own. Obviously, really excited to see the Apple Vision Pro be released, getting a chance to actually try out the Meta Quest 3 right here at CES this time. And I think with these advances in technology, especially if the price points become more feasible for the mass marketplace, it could finally be sort of taking its place. And that's really important to our members, because VR becomes a whole new platform for the possible use of an exploitation of digital replicas, for example, but also just opportunities to expand upon their work.
One thing I have always found interesting about our conversations is that although they, on some level, may seem to deal with the concerns of Hollywood actors, actually it's kind of like a canary in the coal mine situation, or like the experiences and the concerns that you have could impact a lot of other people in a lot of other different workplaces and professions. And so as a union that just went on strike about issues of AI in the workplace generally, do you have any kind of closing advice or thoughts to other people who are just wrestling with these concerns, either as employers, employees, concerned citizens about AI employment and the future of humanity? I'm putting a lot of pressure on you with this question. I just keep stacking up the pressure.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll take a chance to just say, we have our Labor Innovation and Technology Summit that we do with the AFL-CIO. Every year, it's our 5th year doing it this year, and we have hundreds of union delegates from all across the country here for that exact purpose. But what I would say to employers is, if you take an ethical approach, an ethical and responsible approach to your implementation and adoption of AI, that is a path to success. You can see what will happen when companies ignore the human impact of technological adaptation, and especially things like AI. What comes of that is the kind of thing we just experienced with this massive disruption of the entertainment industry for 6 months between the Writers Guild and us. So that didn't have to happen. And if companies step forward and partner with workers to help envision a future where people are lifted up and where AI serves us and we don't serve AI, I think there's a really bright future there.
A great optimistic note to end us on. Duncan Crabtree, Ireland SAG-AFTRA, thanks so much for coming back as always,
James.
and we look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to bringing you many more conversations from right here in the C-Space studio at CES 2024. I am James Kotecki. We will be back very soon. welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio, sponsored by Integral Ad Science here at CES 2024. I'm your host, James Kotecki, and joining me right now is one of the executives from our very own sponsor, Integral Ad Sciences, Yannis Sosios. You're the Chief Commercial Officer, and thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So we had your CMO in earlier, obviously, but I like everybody to take a crack at kind of defining the brand. So what is Integral Ad Science? What does it mean in 2024?
Yeah, so Integral Ad Science is a global media measurement and optimization platform. And what we do is we deliver the world's most actionable data to drive superior results for the world's leading advertisers and publishers and platforms. We're investing very much in artificial intelligence and ML to make that happen, and we're excited to innovate a lot this year.
And I understand you have some exciting news about eye tracking technology, eye tracking.
Yes.
So tell me about what that means and what you're talking about here at CES.
Indeed, we are very excited about this. We've announced our quality attention measurement offering, which is the first offering in the market that combines both media quality with eye tracking data from the largest consumer biometric data set from Lumen Technologies. And it does so in a way that it uses machine learning technology to combine those two together and to deliver superior results for advertisers.
So let's dive into that. Like, how does that work? Where is the data coming from? Can anybody, are people contributing to this data set all the time? Does it have to be someone goes into a lab and their eyes are measured? Like, how does this actually look in practice?
Yeah, well, let's first take a step back and talk a little bit about attention itself. You know, attention is a very important topic right now. There's a lot of both complexity around attention and a lot of interest among advertisers, because the world that advertisers live in is becoming increasingly complex.
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of importance for advertisers for them to actually drive superior results with data. So the way our technology works is we combine we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to take a panel of 650,000 plus users with eye tracking from Lumen, take all that data from that, literally observing the behavior of people looking at interacting with ads, and combining that with media quality signals from IAS, from the core IAS technology. Things like viewability, or the environment of the ad, or the interaction of the ad, and we combine all that using machine learning technology to create one aggregate attention score.
Yeah.
And then advertisers can then use that score to drive better planning, better activation, better creative into their decisions. Now, one of the things that's really important for marketers is to drive superior results with the data that they get from things like attention. So one of the things I'm most excited about with attention is that we're able to demonstrate the link between higher quality attention and better results for advertisers. For example, campaigns that have higher quality attention have more than 130% increase in conversion rates, or more than 91% increase in brand intent. So these are the types of metrics that we want to demonstrate to advertisers that by optimizing for attention, they're actually driving better results.
As you were saying that, it kind of struck me that it's like a way to make eye tracking make sense, I suppose.
Yes.
Because I imagine if you just had eye tracking data, but not the IAS data that you're talking about, you'd have, where the eyeballs are going, but you couldn't tie it towards things like the quality of the media.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Think of the eye tracking as one very important element of whether someone is paying attention. Is their eye actually on the ad? But then you need to understand, is the ad in a very crowded space? What is how many ads are around your specific ad, or how much content is around it, and what other actions is the user doing in order to engage with your ad? Are they turning the volume on or off, or are they scrolling in certain ways? These combined, all these metrics together, can give you a much better understanding of whether the user is actually paying attention and driving results.
And you mentioned you're using AI, ML as part of this process. How much of that is novel? How much of that have you had to invent or advance in order to actually get the results that you want?
We've been investing in AI and ML for many, many years. There's a reason science is in our name. We are a science company that's been using artificial intelligence and ML, and we're applying that to a vast data set. We have over 280 billion data signals that we process every single day.
Yes.
So that's a very big data set that we work with. A lot of the innovations that we've been making recently is using AI on that data set in novel ways. So we can use that, for example, to segment the data and create contextual segments that we can act on. We're using AI also to do things like prediction or decisioning. So actually helping advertisers, based on our data, come up with recommendations to optimize their campaigns. And we're using also AI to protect the brands. So to very easily detect is there a threat? Is there actually something not appropriate for the brand in this particular content? And allowing the advertisers to act on that as well.
It seems like you found a lot of interesting ways to apply it. Is there still like a nagging or gnawing question in your mind about like, what is there another thing that you need to understand about AI, or what's next on the agenda for you as you think about the questions here?
Yeah, it's the big question is really how can we use AI to come up with even more powerful insights to drive even more powerful results for advertisers. And the things that the advertisers really care about, and we speak with a lot of CMOs, even here at CES, they care about maximizing the ROI,
yes,
maximizing their conversions that they're doing. They want to minimize their waste, they want to protect their brand, and they want to be socially responsible. These are all the things that they want. And then on the publisher side, they want to maximize their yield, and they want to have a good consumer experience. Some of the things that we've actually learned about the application of AI is that it can have a very meaningful impact in understanding the in-depth the content that you're analyzing. For example, one of the big trends in the industry right now is video. There's a lot of video content getting created, a lot of content inside social networks, and marketers really want to understand what's inside that video. Don't just tell me the description of the video. They want to understand exactly if the video is safe for their brand. So we used AI and ML with a product called Total Media Quality to analyze a video frame by frame and analyze each image, text, and sound, and be able to understand the risk of that video, the risk levels and the risk categories, and align that to standards like GARM and IAB, so we can then empower advertisers to say, this is the level of brand safety and suitability that I'm comfortable with, and these are the videos that I need to take action on because I don't meet that. So it's that type of application of AI and ML that is the future of this technology. And one of the things I'm excited about is that it leads to better results. When we analyze our total media quality versus traditional metadata analysis of videos, it is 3 times more effective, and that's really what we're striving for.
3 times more effective is an incredible boost. And this is actually something I was just going to ask you, which is, do you think there are home runs kind of still hiding in the data that current or future applications of AI will be able to find? Or is it at this point mostly about getting, to continue the baseball analogy, base hits, right? Is it about just incremental improvement, or is there going to be some amazing counterintuitive insight that humans would have never found that just allows people to kind of go bonkers in their performance?
I think there's both singles and a lot of home runs waiting for us. Okay. And I think, as I think about the analogy of singles, I think about applying AI and ML to more and more platforms. For example, bringing that, for example, to CTV, which is another very big area of growth, or audio or other places. As I think about the real home runs, and what gets me excited is to tie all the way to outcomes and conversions, that type of more deterministic, you identify a trend, you make a recommendation, the advertiser optimizes based on that recommendation, and you can demonstrate pure ROI lift. To me, that is a very important future step of AI and ML.
And what's your biggest challenge in getting to that future?
Honestly, it is we are on our way. We're on our path. I don't think there's anything major that is standing in the way. A lot of this is actually getting the data in, building the models, doing it in a responsible way.
Doing the work.
Doing the work and making sure you do it responsibly. That's super important. Making sure that we build AI models without bias. Making sure that we build AI models that are privacy respectful. And then also partnering with other companies in the industry to get all the data together, because you want to combine data from eye tracking, from audience, from conversions, from media quality. So bringing all those parties together as an ecosystem so that we can connect all the dots all the way from an impression to a user, all the way to a conversion event and an impact for the brand. That is what we need to do.
So we're here at C-Space, that's the Media Marketing Advertising Branding section of a much bigger technology show, CES. Yes. So in this large ecosystem in which we play a part, are there other technologies? Is there a technology that you're really excited about in addition to everything we've been talking about today?
Yes, I'm excited about many technologies in our space, which is why I'm in this space. Is one of the most dynamic spaces. So attention is a very big one. One of the areas that I'm really excited about is connected television. And we've been having a lot of meetings here at CES, both with advertisers, with agencies, with publishers, with OEMs, with broadcasters. Make no mistake, linear TV consumption is increasingly moving into CTV, and advertisers and marketers are just thirsty for understanding the CTV experience and having the same level of confidence and transparency on CTV as they do on linear TV. So I think there's a lot of innovation happening. Some of it involves having publishers provide more transparency into the content that they show on CTV. Some of it involves companies like us, IAS and Publica, analyzing that data and creating really actionable insights for optimization. And another part that I'm excited about is companies like Publica, which is part of the IAS family, creating a superior CTV user experience. So making sure we optimize the user experience, for example, so that you don't have competitive duplication or like have two competitors side by side. You don't see the same ad again and again. How many times has that happened to you?
Right.
But also just have a richer, a more targeted, and more relevant experience on CTV. So I'm really excited about that feature.
So if we're talking again here in 5 years, we should really see some significant advancements there.
Absolutely, and I think in 5 years, you're looking at, in my opinion, CTV being much more mainstream and the way people consume and drive a lot of advertising on both advertiser and publisher side. But I also think AI and ML in 5 years, I can't wait to see how it's going to revolutionize advertising and publishing.
Well, it's an optimistic note to end on. Yannis Dosios, Integral Ad Science, you're the Chief Commercial Officer, and you've been a great guest. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much.
And of course, we really appreciate Integral Ad Science for sponsoring the C-Space Studio. I'm your host, James Kotecki. We're here at CES 2024. So many great conversations are coming up, so stay with us, come back, do whatever you have to do. We will be live when we come back.